and welcome to Wildly Curious, a podcast that tells you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. I'm Laura.
And I'm Katy, and we are continuing Cosmic Critters of launching things into space.
And following up on Laika with sending a dog into space, I would like to follow it up with sending a cat into space.
Of course.
There's no way I wasn't going to talk about a cat in space.
True.
Because first of all, it's a great story, but it is the first, not only the first, but the only cat that has ever been sent into space, which I actually think is kind of surprising.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, like,
especially how independent cats are.
Right, like,
they're not
think
really
that'd actually
dependent
be like
on
great
stuff.
on the International Space Station, right?
Right, because they pretty much just make sure they have automatic feeder and water, and they're not needy.
Floating through the air, and they're just. Bing.
Yeah, you figure a cat out of all the things, like all the different dogs that we've sent to space,
Yeah,
cats
or
would
primates
definitely
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like cats are definitely probably at least the more chill. Maybe they didn't pick it because dogs are loyal; they'll listen for training, and if you have to do stuff, where cats are just big middle
cats
finger.
Would just jump on board the alien spacecraft when it eventually showed up. Like they'd be like,
right,
I'm
just
out.
be like, bye, suckers.
Yeah.
Just be on their way.
Well, this is Félicette the cat, and I also like this story because it is not a country that we often talk about with talking about the space race, because it's France.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, normally when we think about launching things in space, we think about the US and Russia. I mean, coming from someone from America. So, you know, that's probably pretty skewed, but there it is.
French listeners are like, what the heck?
We knew about this one forever. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it was the first and only cat sent into space, and it was done as the second mammal sent into space by France. They were the third country to send a mammal up. So, you know, Russia, us, or us, Russia, whatever. Anyway, third mammal.
Yeah.
So some French neuroscientists, very much like Katy said in the last episode, how they chose fruit flies to go first because they already knew their genetics. Some French neuroscientists were already studying cat brains and how they worked. So France figured, why not study the same thing but in space?
Right.
Might as well use these cats some more. So they trained.
Might as well get our money's worth.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, right. They already figured out how their brains work for the most part. So they were like, let's figure out how they work in space and see if that changes. So they trained 14 cats for space. Very much how they took a troop of dogs, right? They gathered some dogs, trained them for space camp. Same thing. They wanted to know two things. How did these cats do in cramped conditions? Because those capsules were pretty small. And so again, like Laika, they're like smaller, but for not even necessarily smaller, but small cramped conditions for longer and longer periods of time. So just a form of solitary confinement, which is awful.
Yeah.
But perhaps of all animals, cats might be okay with it.
Yeah.
But as horribly funny as this, or as horrible as it is, it's also a really funny image because they wanted to know how did the cat's body react to G-force? So just like in normal, I guess, what they train astronauts for, you know, you see them going in that cage. They put those cats in a giant centrifuge.
Oh my God.
And so I'm just imagining like just the actual sound effects of such a thing. Dying as I'm reading this, thinking it's horrible, but so funny to picture.
Well, have you seen what's it called? Rocket Man, the Disney the space one with the guy? He's like that dorky actor. It is so. That's what I picture. Like when he's keep going,
but it's just a but it's as it goes around and around. Poor thing.
Right.
And so they chose cat C341 for the mission. She was a small tuxedo cat, like a tiny little black and white one. She was also a stray. That's what all these neuroscience cats. All those cats that are neuroscientists. No, all those cats being studied by neuroscientists. So they decided that they didn't want to give them names because they didn't want to become they were part of a scientific experiment before this.
Yep,
they did not.
Yep,
they had blind tests. You know what I mean? Like no attachments to these cats. Cat C341. So she was launched on October 18th, 1963, from the Sahara Desert in Algeria. Since, you know, France and Algeria at the time, at least.
Yeah.
So she was put on board a Veronique AG-147 sounding rocket, which all that being said,
intense.
Yeah, but like what had been used previously for a lot of things is a German-based rocket that's like real beefy.
The V2 whatever.
This one is, I guess, a French one. And it was very slender. And it literally looked like one of those toy rockets that, like, you just put the fins rockets on. Yeah, it's just a
the bottle rockets.
Little rocket with 4 fins on the bottom. They launched that cat into space, where she experienced 9.5 Gs, which is almost double what the Apollo astronauts would have had.
Right.
Her little cat, she just like the poor thing. Cramped into that tiny little capsule on the rocket. So then she was sent up and she went into suborbit for 13 minutes, which is a pretty long. 5 minutes she would have been weightless. So she was suborbiting, so not quite outer space, but enough that she was experiencing weightlessness for 5 minutes.
That's gotta be so confusing for an animal.
Oh my gosh.
You know, like, what the heck is this?
I mean, right. Like, you've been, like, surely they've explained what's going to happen to her, but who knows how much she's comprehending. And she has been tortured thus far, and then finally, like, there's no...
Launched.
It's so horrible. For science. She, thankfully, was parachuted back to Earth, like the graceful feline that she was. They did give her an exit strategy, thankfully.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so she had better outcome than Laika. She did have a better
outcome. She parachuted back down. Unfortunately, her capsule landed upside down, so she was dangling butt up in the air for a while, which is very undignified for a cat. But her biometrics were really good. She was hooked up to sensors the whole time, other than some heart problems on re-entry. Yeah! Can you...
Yes. I think we all would have heart problems on re-entry. Like,
also having no idea what's happening to you. Because also there's no windows in these little capsules for these animals. They're in a closed box. Just exhibiting.
So she has, that's what I was gonna say, she has no, for as far as she knows, she is still on Earth.
Yeah, just
and then all of a sudden she's weightless.
Has been shaking her.
Yes.
Like just.
Yeah, right? She's like, shit, this is another test. This is a heck of a test this time.
Protects my heart.
Am I gonna get a treat after this? This is intense. Like,
well, so I mean, it was a resounding success. So the media started calling her Felix after the black and white cartoon cat from the cartoons.
Because, you know, Felix has a much better ring than C whatever.
Yes, cat. C341.
C341.
But she was a girl. It was a girl, so they changed it.
Yeah.
People started calling the feminine version of Felix, which is Félicette, which is what stuck.
Yeah.
And she now has a statue at the International Space University in France to honor her. It's a really cute statue of a cat on top of planet Earth looking up at the stars.
Oh, that's cute, yeah.
So I think this is where we should end it for people listening to the audio version. But for the YouTube or like whatever version, I do want to end it with a sick and twisted ending.
All right, guys. Well, that ends Cosmic Creatures 2. And next week, so you guys just heard dinosaurs that we did last week. Next week, do we just want to give the spoiler for it? Because I'm so excited.
It's going to be so fun.
So you guys know the Could You series that we do. You know, could you ride that? Could you fight that? All those. So in part 2 of the dinosaur episode we just did last week, we're going to go do Could You Train That? And Laura and I are each going to talk about animals that we think we could, like today, dinosaurs we think we could train and what we would train them to do. And then justify from there. So I, for one, can say I am so freaking excited.
Well, because we keep thinking, like, where can we go from here with the could yous? And then, it just struck
me
about
train
training.
That?
But like with a twist, with the dinosaurs, it'll be like extra fun.
Heck yes. So I'm very excited. So make sure you guys listen next week. Go check it out on YouTube. Go check this one out on YouTube. We'll talk to you guys next week when we talk about could you train dinosaurs and what Laura and I would train them for in present day.
How to train your dino.
I'm excited. All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.